How's it going, folks? This is Steve. Most you know me as Best Ballin, and you'll notice I am on a new YouTube channel. It was an unfortunate series of events that led to that. So I had my Best Ballin channel tied to a work email, and work changed from Google to Outlook, and then not just got rid of our old emails, but also just like closed that entire network. So it's just like completely unrecoverable and super unfortunate. Uh, so I lost my entire YouTube channel, which is rough. I only have like 60 subscribers, so at least it was like early, you know, on in the process. But still pretty unfortunate. So I'm starting back and hoping anyone that followed along with me before will still follow along with me. Definitely going to go Christian McCaffrey here. I've pretty much settled into I'm going to take Taylor, McCaffrey 1, 2, and Cooper Kupp 3. Jefferson 4, Chase 5. And I don't really differentiate at all between those picks 1 through 5 because I want as much as I can get of all 5 of those players. Uh, it's kind of hard to get like Kupp after ADP, but I very, very often get Jefferson and Chase after pick 5. So still get extra ownership on those guys. I don't really want to be dipped down McCaffrey ownership if he ever were to stay healthy. And I, unfortunately, I'm going to have to bring up that I'm starting to get to the point where I want to start getting more Derrick Henry, which is like brutal. Just because, like, when he was healthy last year, the difference he was making was as big as Christian McCaffrey when he's healthy. So, not really sure I want to play that, like, is he going to stay healthy game together with Derrick Henry. So, I think I'm going to slot him in as my 6 for the time being. Probably Eckler as my 7, then Diggs and Adams, and like Dalvin Cook and Kelsey. But anyway, new channel. Going to be focusing a bit more on game theory, which is why I named the new channel GTO Best Ball. So I want to start doing more things that are game theory optimal and focusing more on like my roster constructions and bringbacks and stuff like that, and a little bit less on player takes. That's another thing where I'm like kind of gonna actually start taking some Derrick Henry, is because that's a very player take driven like fade that like you think he's going to be injured again because of the foot. But I actually watched a video by Dr. Jesse Morris, and he was saying how this like injury is not really a heavy chance of it being a re-injury. So like basically what happened is pinky toe got folded up under his foot while he was running and caused a Jones fracture. But since they put a plate in it, I guess it generally just like takes care of the issue. And we saw him back already for the playoffs. His workout videos this summer, I know workout videos don't mean much, but I mean at least like when you've got the kind of injury he has where you're really concerned about a foot and you're seeing the guy not looking any different, something. Don't really overvalue workout videos, but it is something to note. So I'd really like to not take a running back here. I think that that'll be pretty easy. I'll either take Andrews, Higgins, or AJ Brown and be pretty happy. I would not have liked much to go to like Keenan Allen as far as non-running backs go, but I don't mind those 3 options. I've been trying to get more Lamar, so especially on Underdog. I actually have a ton of Lamar on DraftKings and like hardly any on Underdog. It has more to do with the prices of Andrews and the price of. That sucks. I'm going to take T. Higgins because I have a lot less Higgins than I have AJ Brown. So So Lamar, I have a lot more of on DraftKings because he's just because Mark Andrews is cheaper on DraftKings, and so is Rashad Bateman. They're both harder to get on Underdog, and I really don't like taking a quarterback when I don't have one of their top two options because of how hard it is to actually win first place and how closely those two things correlate. Hmm. Person's name Squarehammer. I wonder if they're a Ghost fan. The band. Really happy to get AJ Brown on the other side of this. Would gladly have taken him with the other pick. I'm not really like overly fading Fournette because of the weight thing. Just like I'm fine. I don't really want like both running backs in that week 17 game, although it's not that bad because Christian McCaffrey obviously will catch a billion passes, and so will Leonard Fournette. So probably be fine having them on either side of that game. But also, like I just prefer Hero RB right now because you really want to get as many of the zero RB targets as you can at this time of year before people start getting hurt and all that sort of stuff starts happening in the preseason. So we need some Tampa correlations to go with Carolina. That'll be a little difficult. It's not too many Tampa players I actually like at ADP. Like Evans is priced very high and can't get him with Christian McCaffrey. Gage, I think, is overpriced. Godwin, I actually like his price right now. So he's a guy we could maybe look for. For quarterbacks, we'll have Hurts or Burrow available to us since we have T. Higgins and AJ Brown. I prefer Hurts to Burrow, but I also have a lot of Hurts and not that much Burrow. So open-minded to who I get between those two. So we obviously could be some sort of hyper fragile build since we have McCaffrey, but I'm really not looking to be that at the moment because, like I said, at this time of year, I'm kind of looking to get more of the zero RB targets. So I'm pretty much drafting more hero and zero RB. I think hero RB is significantly better than zero RB as a strategy. So I do like zero RB. I feel like hero is a step above all the others. Like I like hero a good bit more than dual, a good bit more than hyper fragile, a good bit more than zero. So hero is definitely my favorite. There's certain things that if they go right for hero RB, like that zero RB just can't fight against. Like just for example, say Christian McCaffrey stays healthy. There's nothing zero RB can do against that. A hero RB team that has Christian McCaffrey that has a lot of the same build as them, but then has Christian McCaffrey instead of, as good as I like Jamar Chase or Justin Jefferson. They're not going to do for you what Christian McCaffrey, if he was somehow to ever stay healthy, can do. So if Breece Hall was to be there when we picked, we could entertain the idea of a dual RB build. Pretty much other than him, not super interested in that. Wide receiver, there's a few people available I like. And tight end, I don't mind Waller or Kittle, though we might leave tight end open to go for Goddard if we want to get Hurts. Seems like this is going to be a draft where the QBs are a little easier to get than usual. I wonder if this person takes Lamar. They have Andrews, so they didn't. We could grab Bateman and see if Lamar makes it back to us. Could just take Waller. This puts us in a pretty good spot because either we're going to get Waller or we're going to get Lamar at the onesie position. Nice. So I think that this guy made a pretty big mistake not taking Lamar there. Like if he took Lamar instead of Gabe Davis, then like he would have probably been open to get Bateman and had like the whole stack for the Ravens with Lamar, Bateman, and Andrews. But since I don't know if he got greedy or like what he was thinking. Maybe he just like thought that we would definitely take Gabe Davis because we had T. Higgins, which I probably would have. But I actually think the way this worked out is much better for us. So like I need to get some Lamar. So I like definitely need to be open to getting some just Lamar Bateman teams and some just Lamar Andrews teams. I already have like I said on DraftKings I have like he's my most owned quarterback is Lamar. I think it's like close to 20%. And I have a ton of teams that have all Lamar, Bateman, and Andrews. On DraftKings, I really struggled to get Lamar. It just seems like people just take him so early. Wow, incredible value on Patrick Mahomes. And it goes to a dead team. Oh, that poor guy. That sucks. This guy's a shield. That's kind of really surprised to see a shield draft 4 straight running backs. That's weird. Loving where we're sitting. Could go for like a Lamar and Hurts team if Hurts makes it back to us. I really don't like going to elite QBs, though I will on occasion do so. Burrow should be available to us, but probably kind of the same thing. I'm not thrilled to go to elite QBs. I don't want none of it in my portfolio, but I don't want much of it. I want to be pretty small. We have back-to-back teams that have 4 running backs. So what is going on? So basically 2 dead teams in our draft. That's pretty good. Pretty good. I mean, we're like a Christian McCaffrey injury away from being a dead team, but that's going to happen to you when you're trying to win $2 million and come in first place in one of these tournaments. So I've definitely mentioned this in previous videos, but not on this channel. This is the first one of this channel. I think it's really important that you know what build you're in as far as running backs go, and that you know how many running backs to draft in each one of the builds. So for me, hyperfragile is 4. I don't draft 3. I don't draft 5. I draft 4 in all my hyperfragile builds. I just think that that's game theory optimal number to have. There are certain like 3s where you start 3 and they're all different bye weeks where you can definitely consider going 3. But for me, it's just like too thin. Like there's so many like instances where a guy misses like 2 or 3 weeks and like now you're screwed, where if you had someone to cover, that wouldn't happen. So to me, I like 4 in hyperfragiles. I stick to 4 every time I do a hyperfragile. Dual running backs where you start with like 2 in the first, 5 or 6 rounds. Those builds, I'll take 5 running backs. And then, which we could still get into with this build actually, if Antonio Gibson is there. He will be a consideration for me. I like Elijah Moore. I like Devonta Smith. Hurts went. I'm not too into doing the Burrow thing. I'm no longer like waiting on tight end for Goddard, though I may just wait on tight end in general. I think we could turn this into like a dual RB build with Gibson. I like that. So unfortunately, I won't get as many of the good 0 RB targets this build. Yeah, I guess Square Hammer already is a tight end, so he might leave us Dalton Schultz if we want Dalton Schultz. Not really sure that I want Dalton Schultz. I don't really take hardly any Dalton Schultz. To be honest, I still don't really love him. I think I'm just going to go down and take Tony. I have Tony ranked like quite a bit higher for best ball just because of like ceilings. So like I have Tony ranked the highest of the people that are left just because I think his ceiling is like so insane. But I mean, that's like a pretty big ADP reach, 10 picks. we reached on Bateman some to come back with more, but it is what it is. I definitely don't feel like, as far as like tiers and people on the board, that it was that much of a reach. I was either going to take Tony, DeAndre Hopkins, Schultz, London. Those were all like thoughts. London, I'm getting to the point where like my ownership is, I can't. I have to start backing down. Like I'm up at like 24% Drake London, where I probably don't want to be really above 16 or so. 16 is like twice the field. I'm not like super strict in monitoring like these ownership percentages down to like the final percent, but I do like to keep them at least in mind and stuff. So, you're really going to end up eating some poop on ADPs when you're at the turns. It's nice when someone falls to you at some sort of like great value, but you tend to just not get great values when you're on the turn. So maybe we'll look to get Knox if he's available at tight end, because he'll be a game stacked with T. Higgins. We could look at maybe Freiermuth, because he correlates with Rashad Bateman week 17. So Knox or Freiermuth are people to kind of keep in mind as far as tight end goes. As far as Tampa Bay, I mean, if you're forcing me to draft a Tampa Bay tight end, I think I would take Kyle Rudolph, but I don't love any of them. The reason why I take Kyle Rudolph is he has historically been a beast in the red zone, so there's very easily way to see Kyle Rudolph ending up with like 8 or 10 touchdowns while doing like not a whole lot else. So like he's not that good of a pick, but I think he's the best pick of the three. Because like I just don't think the ceiling is much. I guess Kate Otten probably has the most ceiling, but he's a rookie tight end with Tom Brady, so I'm just not going to waste picks on that. I've just seen Tom Brady and rookies not jive too much, so. But he might have the highest pure upside if you were to say the best case scenario for all of them. We do have some options at running back where we could maybe consider going to a hyper fragile build. I think like Miles Sanders, Rashad Penny, Damian Harris all would leave that as an option for us. I really, like I said, prefer Hero, but I felt with like the Gibson pick that he was just like a much better pick than the wide receivers available at that time. So kind of let the draft board dictate. So I think the biggest value in all of best ball right now is Ryan Tannehill. So Tannehill goes as like, I don't know, QB 20 something, 25. I was going to say 25 or 26. Right, he goes as QB 25. He finished last year as QB 12 and the year before as QB 7. So I know he lost AJ Brown, but AJ Brown had 63 catches for like 869 yards and 5 touchdowns last year. That's not a ton. Do we have anything that Ayuk correlates with? Not really. Still probably the best pick. I could go with Knox. I don't think that he'll go with Knox. Kind of want Burks. I'm going to take Ayuk in this draft. So I've been drafting a ton of Burks because Burks goes with Tannehill, obviously. Burks goes next. So I'm either going to take Damian Harris or Knox, depending on who this person takes. I wouldn't hate going a hyper fragile build with those guys, but I'd rather have Knox to correlate with T. Higgins. So let's just take Knox. So we did get like a 6 spot ADP break on Ayuk, which was nice. So anyway, getting back to Ryan Tannehill, QB 25. So he was QB 12 last year and QB 7 the year before. I do realize he's lost AJ Brown, but yeah, AJ Brown had 63 for like 869 and 5 last year or something, which is obviously like Treylon Burks can do that, right? And then Julio Jones and Ferkster were like useless. They had 3 touchdowns between the two of them. I think one of them had like 400 yards and the other had 200 yards. They both had like one guy, they were both around 30 catches. So, like, obviously, like the combination of Burks, Woods, and Hooper has a lot more upside than what they had there last year. Like, what last year actually produced. So, maybe what they had last year upside had a higher upside, but what it last year actually produced, what they have now has a higher upside by a good bit. So, I definitely like Ryan Tannehill. I think he's like vastly underrated. Like, I think that he should probably be going, I don't know, at worst after Trevor Lawrence before Jameis Winston. Like, with Daniel Jones, are you like really hoping that Daniel Jones has a much higher ceiling than what Ryan Tannehill has done in the last 2 years? I think that's about the best you can hope for from Daniel Jones. Like, Tannehill's had 7 rushing touchdowns each of the last 2 years. Like, I think that he's probably like in consideration up here, but if you're looking pure upside, I don't know. I guess all these guys are probably a little bit better. So for me, Tannehill, I kind of like him right after Tua and Trevor, and you get him so much later. Like, I'm ending up with extra Burks because I want to like leave breadcrumbs to Tannehill open. So one thing I'll talk about a bit is leaving breadcrumbs to quarterbacks. Like, if you're deciding between two people in the same range and you don't have a good idea of what you're going to do at quarterback, like for a quarterback 2 or whatever, you should take a guy that correlates with a quarterback that you actually like that's still available later, so that you can kind of like leave yourself some breadcrumbs to end up like all set at quarterback. Whereas if you're taking guys that don't correlate with any of those quarterbacks, then you end up in like kind of a bad spot where you're confused. Could end up with Rachaad White here. He would kind of correlate similarly as Fournette would with Christian McCaffrey. We did pass on the Fournette part of it. There is not a lot that enthuses me at wide receiver right now. I like Galladay, then probably Dotson after that, and White goes. So, do kind of swing with Madison. Kind of fine with ending up with Rojo or Madison and just kind of adjusting my type of build depending on which one I get. So I'm going to take Galladay, try to set up a double stack for Daniel Jones, which will require Daniel Jones actually making it back to us next round. He took neither. I think with this build, I'm going to take Ronald Jones. So with Ronald Jones, we could even consider going with a 4 running back build, sort of a modified hyperfragile. I like Sony Michel a lot as like a later choice. So we could kind of set up some sort of like McCaffrey, Gibson, Ronald Jones, and Sony, and like hope that Ronald Jones and Sony both hit, and then this team is like super off to the races because we didn't use that much draft capital on running back. So this is either going to be the typical dual RB 5 RB build, or we might even push this as a hyper fragile build. I am going to look for Daniel Jones on the way back. I'm not overly worried about bye weeks, but we do kind of want to keep in mind we have 3 wide receivers with week 9 bye week. So if we're in a tie-breaking situation, I would want to go for a wide receiver that is not week 9. Too many people just like to meme and make fun of things like that in bye weeks. I think it's important if you're playing Game Theory Optimal to not meme and make fun of those sort of things. So like, yeah, I don't really care if I end up with another guy with a week 9 bye week, right? It's not that big a deal. But like, if I'm picking between 2 people in the same tier and I don't really know who I want, then just pick the one who isn't week 9 bye week. Like, you know, it's not some of these game theory things like to really help you out. And like, you're only going to be obviously minimally affecting advance rates. But if you're constantly doing things that minimally affect advance rates, and your opponents are constantly doing things that negatively, even if small, affect advance rates, you're moving this way and they're moving that way. I mean, and like the goal of this is, obviously to win the bigger prizes, so that's not that big a deal, but it is percentage points you are gaining versus the average, while some people are giving up percentage points versus the average. So, game theory optimal is about minimizing your mistakes and letting other people make mistakes and then taking advantage of that. So we do have Daniel Jones high on our radar. I'd like to get him with the double stack of Tony and Galladay. Nothing else we're super specifically looking for. I do like Jahan Dotson quite a bit as a pick. So I guess there's that. There are some nice running backs if we were going to go more towards a 5 running back build that are out there with Henderson and Carter. Tight end is getting ravaged right now. I think Mike Gesicki is my least favorite player in all of fantasy this year as far as like cost versus like my opinion on him and what you're getting. Like he's the third option on the Tua offense, with Tyreek Hill and Waddle commanding like monster target shares. And like Gesicki would fucking disappear before, like without that problem. I don't think he's gonna disappear less now. So players I'm kind of looking at right now are Henderson, Dotson, Michael Carter, and Daniel Jones. I feel like I will probably risk Daniel Jones going to this guy at the turn. He doesn't have anyone that correlates with him. Also has the same bye week as Russell Wilson, so I'm going to pull up the draft board after this so we can take a look at that after I make my 2 picks. Keep meaning to have that up more often than I get thinking all the time. So do we want Dotson or do we want one of these running backs? I really want Dotson. Now do we want to push Daniel Jones? I don't think we do, so we'll take Daniel Jones. Tough to go up a Henderson share there. It was pretty close for me between Henderson and Dawson. I feel really confident in Ronald Jones this year, which is probably a big, big mistake because of the way, whatever. That one reporter was talking about the fact that he could get cut. I just think he would land on his feet somewhere else, even if that happened. But the real appeal to him is that he could end up being the main running back for the Chiefs. So that's the reason why I'm willing to kind of use him in a hyper fragile build, is just because his 95th percentile outcome is so good. So looking at the board, top 5 picks went as expected. Nothing like too crazy here. Tiny fall for CeeDee Lamb. This Mike Williams pick here doesn't make any sense to me. Unless this person is just trying for some sort of unique build. Like maybe he wanted to get specifically like a Mike Williams, DJ Moore team, but I would not take Mike Williams over T. Higgins or AJ Brown, nor would I take Michael Pittman over either of them. Like Pittman and Williams start the next tier for me after Tyreek, Higgins, and Brown, which is a tier for me. Javonte at the turn. Interesting. Josh Allen did go to the Diggs team. They ended up with kind of a hero RB where I guess even they might even end up with like a dual RB really, because Josh Jacobs and Sanders do have pretty good top ranges in their top ranges of outcomes. He ended up with Fields. Oh, he ended up with Mike Gesicki. Oof. Then did he end up with like Fields, like no real correlations? I guess he can get the later correlations, Fields correlations, but that doesn't super appeal to me. Darrell Williams feels like he's starting to go a little earlier in these drafts. Nico obviously has moved up since there was the horrible John Mechie news. I feel so bad for John Mechie. I have a friend that has leukemia, and it's been pretty tough for them to deal with. And hopefully he can come through. Sucks to talk about your exposures and what when a guy is dealing with a real life problem the way Mechie is. It's as serious as it is, but I'm in the best ball game. We have to least talk about it. I had 25% John Mechie, so that was a pretty big hit to me. Luckily, I was getting most of my shares, in around 17 or 18. He was one of the guys I was slamming in those rounds. As an unfortunate turn of events, I didn't have any Justin Ross, who's also been ruled out for the year, so at least I didn't add Justin Ross percentage points on top of my Mechie percentage points, and I did have a ton of late Nico Collins. I had so much Mechie because I was taking Mechie and Collins a bunch late with Davis Mills back when quarterbacks were harder to come by. Like, it was just harder to get quarterbacks that you really liked for a while. I'm pretty interested in picking up another tight end here. This will probably be a 3 tight end build. I'm also very interested in George Pickens. I think he's incredibly underrated. So I don't really have the guy behind us has 2 tight ends, so I'm just going to discount the fact that he could take a tight end entirely. And pray to God he doesn't. That sucks. Now I really don't want to play that game as much as I did before. So what happens if we lose George Pickens here? I guess, he has another week 9 wide receiver, so there's that. But like I said, in this case, for me, George Pickens is a tier above all these other people, so I'm not going to worry about this extra week 9 bye. So that's another reason why, say you're going through the course of your draft and you run into that situation where it is a tie for you, you should definitely be taking the person that's not the week 9 bye, because you might have a situation like this one just came up for me with George Pickens where it's not a tie for you at all. And you have George Pickens. I have George Pickens in the same tier as John Dotson. So, who goes 30 picks ahead of him. So for me, it is not a tie between those guys. It's going to have a lot of wide receivers on this team. Could definitely consider another tight end. Don't have to. I would slightly prefer to have a third tight end having Knox and Fant. But sometimes there just aren't good tight ends available that you feel I think I know what I'm going to do at tight end. So I think we can save tight end for the very last round. So I'm going to kind of look for Sony if I can get him, and a wide receiver at the next go round. So I think at tight end, what I'm going to do is hope that Harrison Bryant doesn't get taken before me in round 18 and pick him with my last round pick. Because I really like Harrison Bryant. The last 2 seasons, he's had 3 touchdowns, right? So he's not a zero. He's not just a dead body that you're being forced to carry in the hopes that Njoku gets hurt. And he had the 3 touchdowns each season with Njoku and Hooper on the team while he was a rookie and second-year player. So I think his role can just grow enough. He might be a 5 touchdown guy this year, even if Njoku's healthy. And then if something happens to Njoku, Harrison Bryant can really go off. He was the Mackey Award winner as the best tight end in college when he was in college. I think he really does have that upside to just go kind of nuts if something happens to Njoku. So one thing to keep in mind is I'm not going to take Wan'Dale Robinson. Combo of I don't like going over 2 pass catchers on the same team, and we already have Galladay and Tony. So for us, we're kind of hoping that those two stay healthy, and that's how Daniel Jones goes off. We had to reach on Daniel Jones at the turn, obviously 12 picks ahead of ADP as well. But like I said, when you're on the turn, it just kind of sucks. If you send him back the other way and don't get him, then you've set up a double stack where you didn't get the quarterback. Just being on the turn is a little rough. Julio's a guy I like quite a bit. He's plus 350 to go to the Packers. If he were to go to the Packers, I feel like he would move up quite a bit. So we have 3 picks left. I'm kind of hoping that my next pick is Sony Michel. Like, I specifically want him for this build, so if he goes, we might abort the plan of going with 3 tight ends because we might end up going with 5 running backs. I definitely want one more wide receiver. I would really like for it to be Julio. Isaiah McKenzie is another strong consideration. So, Julio. Whoops. I did not want Brian Robinson. Julio went. It's funny. Right as I was going to click him. I do like David Bell a lot, but, like, for example, like, he is not enough above the field here where I'm going to take a 5th guy with that bye week. We could see which one of these guys we might be able to sneak through over here. This guy's 5 running backs. I really do kind of need Sony for this build, but I'm going to get incredibly greedy. So I just don't think there's any way he's taking Sony, whereas I think there's a very good chance he could take Isaiah McKenzie. This could be a big backfire. It was a running back. All right. So I know that there's some chance that Sony's just like nothing, and then like he might not even have a role in Miami. Who the fuck knows? But I think he definitely has having a strong role in his range of outcomes, as does Ronald Jones, which is why I'm kind of like using this as a hyper fragile build, assuming that Christian McCaffrey at worst misses like 1 or 2 weeks other than his bye. I mean, if it's any worse than that, we were in trouble no matter what, because he was our first round pick number 2. So, like, you really don't want to overly plan for that situation. So, let's see what else I would consider taking. Logan Thomas. I have like a decent amount of Taysom Hill, but I mean, I guess that should be like in there. There's Dulcich, there's Rudolph. Harrison Bryant is a ways down. I would probably take some Dulcich over Taysom Hill. I'd probably take some Kyle Rudolph over all these people. I don't really want Kyle Rudolph. It's a good chance Kyle Rudolph is just flat out a better pick than Harrison Bryant. I just don't think he has that ceiling because, like, I do think Rudolph has the 8 to 10 touchdowns, like, possible. It might seem like a lot to you, but, like, it's Tom Brady near the goal line. And Rudolph has been good down to the goal line. But, like, I just don't think he's going to do a whole lot of, like, catching the ball in the middle of the field and things like that. Like, I think he's pretty much only going to be useful on the goal line. Whereas Harrison Bryant with an Njoku injury could be, like, beast. Dulcich has a chance to overtake Akua Bunum, too, and be very, very good for Denver. So I do think Dulcich is a reasonable pick for a 3rd tight end as well. I have like a few Taysom Hills in this format, so I'm not really like looking to get any more Taysom Hill. I think we could just take him off. I have kind of as much Taysom Hill as I'm really be looking to get. Uzoma is worth the consideration. Conklin, Trey McBride, all those guys. I like Trey McBride a bit more than Dulcich, but the fact that Dulcich was running with the first team before he had his core injury, it's a little bit easier to see him just like scooting right past Akua Bunum than, I mean, McBride's not scooting past Zach Ertz. Zach Ertz is going to have to get hurt or something. Wow, 2 teams in a row that picked 4 straight running backs. One of them just went with a quarterback right after that. Who did he end up with a wide receiver? Cooper, Devonta Smith, MVS, and Sky Moore, Garrett Wilson. I mean, his team ended up like okay. I still don't like it much, but it's like, did he take another running back? No, he just stayed at the 4 running back. So I actually like his team quite a bit. Oh, no, he took Dolchich. I mean, if you're going to start a team with 4 running backs and then a quarterback, I think it worked out about as good as it could because you got, 3 stack pieces for Mahomes. You got Garrett Wilson. I mean, it doesn't look like enough, especially since he's going 3 late tight ends. But so I guess I'm going to take Harrison Bryant or Rudolph here. Cool. So quite a big fan of this team. We ended up with Lamar and Daniel Jones, McCaffrey, Gibson, Ronald Jones, and Michelle. This is as hyper fragile as it can get. You have the very fragile McCaffrey. You have Gibson, who might be losing some of his work. You have Ronald Jones and Michelle, who have completely undefined roles. But I think like the ceiling outcome for this 4 running backs is really high. Then obviously wide receiver, we've got Higgins, AJ Brown, Bateman, Tony, Ayuk, Galladay, Dotson, Pickens, Isaiah McKenzie. Love our wide receiver group. And at tight end, we've got Knox, Fant, and Bryant, which seems more than adequate. All in all, I'd give this one like a B plus or so. It's definitely not like an A. I'm not like super excited about this team, but it's definitely a good team that I like a good bit. So thanks for watching. If you have time, please subscribe to the new channel. I'm going to be grinding back my 60 subscribers. And good luck in your drafts, folks.